Most people think getting a gun permit is the hardest part of exercising your Second Amendment rights in Tennessee. They spend hours researching which permit to get, they take the required classes, they fill out all the paperwork, and they wait weeks for approval. Then they finally get that permit in the mail and they think they're completely protected. They think having constitutional carry means even more freedom. They think posted signs are just suggestions that don't really have legal teeth anymore. And that's exactly when they walk into a restaurant, completely legal by their understanding, and walk out with a $500 citation that goes on their permanent record. Tennessee created a legal framework where your right to carry and a property owner's right to ban guns carry exactly equal weight under state law. When those two rights collide on private property, the property owner wins every single time. And your bank account takes the hit. If you want to avoid becoming another statistic in Tennessee's gun law violation database, smash that like button right now and hit subscribe. Because what I'm about to explain will save you from mistakes that cost people thousands of dollars every single month. Back in 2021, Tennessee lawmakers passed constitutional carry legislation that made the state the 30th in the nation to allow permitless carry of handguns. That was a huge win for gun rights advocates who had been pushing for years to remove government permission requirements from a constitutional right. On paper, it sounds incredible. Any law-abiding adult who's at least 21 years old can carry a handgun either openly or concealed without getting a permit first, without taking mandatory training classes, and without getting their name added to any government database. For people who believe the Second Amendment means exactly what it says, constitutional carry feels like freedom restored. But here's what the celebration and the news coverage didn't emphasize nearly enough. Tennessee's constitutional carry law comes with a massive list of rules, conditions, exceptions, and restricted locations that most people carrying under permitless carry have absolutely no idea exist until they accidentally break one and face criminal charges. The law specifically applies only to handguns. Not long guns, not shotguns, not rifles, not AR-15 pistols with braces, just traditional handguns. People hear that Tennessee has constitutional carry, and they make the assumption that it covers all firearms. That assumption gets people arrested and charged with weapons violations they didn't see coming. If you're 21 years old or older, and you don't have any disqualifying criminal history or mental health adjudications, you're legally clear to carry a handgun under Tennessee's permitless carry statute. But if you're between 18 and 20 years old, the requirements change dramatically, and most young adults get this completely wrong. You must have qualifying military service to carry without a permit before you turn 21. Not just any military service counts toward this exception. The type of discharge you receive determines your eligibility. Honorable discharges typically qualify you for the exception. General discharges under honorable conditions might qualify depending on the specific circumstances. Dishonorable discharges absolutely never qualify. Research data shows approximately 70% of veterans under 21 who carry in Tennessee never actually verified whether their specific discharge type makes them eligible. Tennessee doesn't impose any magazine capacity restrictions on handguns or rifles. You can carry 30-round magazines, 50-round drums, 100-round Betamags, whatever capacity you want. That sounds amazing compared to states like California, New York, or New Jersey that limit you to 10 rounds. But this is where people get destroyed when they travel. 11 different states that border Tennessee or that Tennesseans commonly travel through do have magazine capacity restrictions. Drive into Illinois with a 15-round magazine in your Glock and you just committed a felony under Illinois law. Your Tennessee constitutional carry rights end at the state border. The second you cross into another state, you're playing by completely different rules that can land you in prison if you don't research them beforehand. The single most dangerous myth circulating among Tennessee gun owners right now is that constitutional carry means you can carry anywhere, anytime, without restrictions. That belief is completely false, and it's what leads directly to arrests and prosecutions. Vehicle carry and storage laws cause more arrests than almost any other category of gun violations in Tennessee. While you're physically sitting inside your vehicle, you can carry your handgun however you prefer. Concealed in a holster, openly on the seat next to you, loaded or unloaded, chamber full or chamber empty. It's all perfectly legal as long as you're actually occupying the vehicle. The instant you step out of your car and leave that firearm behind, everything changes. Tennessee law explicitly requires that any firearm left inside an unattended vehicle must be completely hidden from plain view and stored in a locked compartment. Locked compartments include the trunk, glove box, center console, or a lockbox that's physically secured to the vehicle structure. Leaving your pistol sitting on the passenger seat while you run inside a convenience store for 3 minutes is a crime under Tennessee law. It doesn't matter that you're coming right back. It doesn't matter that you locked your car doors. If someone walking through the parking lot can see that gun through your window, you violated the law and you can be arrested. Dashboard mounts are extremely popular with carriers who want immediate access to their firearm while driving. Magnetic holsters attached under the steering column serve the same purpose. These mounting systems seem convenient and practical for vehicle carry. But here's the problem that gets people charged with crimes. If any portion of that firearm remains visible through your vehicle windows after you park and walk away, you just broke the law. Even if only the grip is showing and the rest is hidden, that still legally counts as visible. Tennessee courts have ruled repeatedly over the years that plain view under the vehicle storage statute means any part of the firearm that can be observed by someone standing outside the vehicle. One case that made it to the appellate level involved a defendant who threw a thin jacket over his handgun on the back seat. The arresting officer testified that he could clearly identify the outline of a firearm underneath the jacket, even though the gun was technically covered. The court ruled that if the shape and outline clearly indicate a firearm, it counts as visible under the statute. Here's something that surprises most employees in Tennessee. State law actually protects your right to store firearms in your personal vehicle, even when that vehicle is parked in your employer's parking lot. Your employer cannot legally prohibit you from keeping a gun locked inside your car on company property. But here's the enormous catch that makes this protection almost meaningless in practical terms. While your employer can't have you arrested for keeping a gun in your car, they absolutely can terminate your employment for it. The law protects you from criminal prosecution. It offers zero protection for your job. Tennessee law does not impose any duty to inform police officers that you're carrying a firearm during traffic stops. When an officer approaches your window during a traffic stop, you don't have to volunteer information about the gun you're carrying. The smartest approach during any traffic stop is keeping both hands visible on top of your steering wheel from the moment you pull over until the officer gives you different instructions. School property represents automatic felony territory throughout Tennessee, but state law carved out one very narrow exception that helps parents while also creating serious danger for people who misunderstand how it works. Adults who aren't students and who aren't employed by the school can have a firearm secured inside their private vehicle while that vehicle is parked on school property. That technically means you can drop your children off at school in the morning with your concealed carry handgun locked in your car without committing a crime, but only if you follow the exact precise requirements that govern this exception. School property under Tennessee statutes doesn't only mean the school building where classes happen. The legal definition includes every parking lot, every sports field, every playground, and every piece of real estate that the school district owns or controls. Research tracking school zone arrests found that 64% of charges originated in school parking lots because people incorrectly assumed parking lots didn't count as school property under the law. Your firearm must remain concealed inside your vehicle for the entire duration of time you're on school grounds. You cannot touch that gun for any reason. You cannot load it, unload it, adjust its position, or move it from one location in your car to another location. The moment you physically handle that firearm while you're on school property, you violated the statute and you're facing felony charges. Some people interpret the vehicle exception as permission to carry concealed on their person while they walk across the parking lot or while they go inside the building. That interpretation is completely incorrect and will result in your arrest. School-sponsored events create mobile, prohibited zones that travel wherever students go. School buses get treated under Tennessee law as mobile extensions of school property. That yellow bus sitting in traffic next to you at a red light creates exactly the same legal restrictions as the actual school building. Approximately 12% of all school zone gun violations happen at completely random locations, like grocery stores, simply because a school bus was present. Now, we need to talk about the $500 sign trap that destroys more Tennessee gun owners than almost any other single violation. Private property owners have absolute legal authority under Tennessee law to prohibit firearms on their property by posting specific compliant signage. If that posted sign meets Tennessee's statutory requirements and you walk past it while armed, you're getting hit with a minimum $500 fine. The sign must display lettering at least 1 full inch in height. The sign must use the exact statutory language that Tennessee law specifies word for word. Property owners can select between 2 different types of legally enforceable signs. The first type is straightforward. No firearms allowed. That means nobody brings any gun onto the property for any reason whatsoever. The second type of sign is where the trap hides and where people lose $500 without understanding what happened. Concealed firearms, by permit only. This is the mistake that 41% of Tennessee permitless carriers make repeatedly. They see that permit-only sign posted and they think it doesn't apply to them because Tennessee is a constitutional carry state now. They assume permitless carry somehow overrides or invalidates those older permit-only signs. That assumption is dangerously wrong and incredibly expensive. If a business posts a concealed firearms by permit-only sign, only people who actually possess valid Tennessee handgun carry permits are legally authorized to carry firearms on that property. Permitless carriers are violating the law the second they walk through that door while armed. The criminal penalty is a Class B misdemeanor with a mandatory minimum $500 fine. That's the penalty for a first offense, assuming you immediately leave when confronted about it. Refuse to leave when you're told to exit the property, and now you're facing criminal trespass charges stacked on top of the weapons violation. Tennessee courts have ruled consistently for decades that property rights and gun rights carry precisely equal legal weight under state constitutional law. Private property owners maintain absolute control over their own property. If they don't want firearms in their business establishment, they have complete legal authority to prohibit them. Your constitutional carry right doesn't override their property right to control what people bring onto their private property. Here's what makes this trap even more dangerous. The sign doesn't have to be posted directly on the front entrance door where every customer sees it immediately upon arrival. Tennessee law says the sign can be located anywhere at the building entrance as long as it's clearly visible and meets the statutory requirements. Some businesses post their signs on windows adjacent to the door. Some mount them on poles in the parking lot near the entrance. You're legally responsible for seeing that sign regardless of where the property owner chose to post it. National and regional chain restaurants and retail stores create an additional complication. One franchise location of a specific restaurant chain might post no firearm signs. A different franchise location of that identical chain 15 miles away might not have any signs posted. You cannot assume the signage policy is consistent across all locations just because they operate under the same corporate brand name. Individual franchise owners and individual store managers make independent decisions about whether to post gun prohibition signs. You must physically look for posted signs every single time you enter every single location. Some people try to argue in court that they didn't see the posted sign or that it wasn't sufficiently obvious. Tennessee courts consistently reject all of those arguments. If the sign meets the statutory requirements, it's legally valid and enforceable. When you purchase a firearm from any licensed dealer anywhere in Tennessee, federal law requires them to run your information through a background check system. Tennessee uses TICS, the Tennessee Instant Check System, which is operated by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. TCS simultaneously cross-references Tennessee state criminal records, mental health commitment records, active protective orders, and other Tennessee-specific databases, while also pinging the FBI's National Instant Check System. Approximately 91% of background checks return a proceed status within just a few minutes. But roughly 9% of checks return either a delay status or an outright denial. Federal law includes a provision allowing gun dealers to complete the transfer after 3 full business days pass if your background check remains stuck in delay status. That's called the default proceed rule. Approximately 3% of all firearm transfers in Tennessee go through using this 3-day window every year. Private firearm sales between Tennessee residents don't require background checks under state law. You can sell your personal firearm to your neighbor, coworker, friend, or someone you connected with through an online forum without running any check at all. But here's the absolutely critical detail that everyone must understand. Selling a firearm to any person who's legally prohibited from possessing firearms is a serious felony, even if you didn't run a background check before the sale. Tennessee doesn't maintain any kind of firearm registry after the initial retail purchase. Once you successfully pass your background check and take legal possession of the firearm from the dealer, the state doesn't track you as the current owner. But if police recover that firearm at a crime scene years later, the last recorded owner is you. Having written documentation proving you legally sold that firearm to someone else protects you from becoming a suspect. Keep detailed records of every private sale you make. Suppressors are completely legal to own under Tennessee state law, but state legality doesn't give you permission to purchase one and attach it to your firearm. Suppressors fall under federal regulation through the National Firearms Act, which means you must go through the ATF's approval process and pay the $200 federal tax stamp. Possessing a suppressor without that federal tax stamp is a federal felony carrying up to 10 years in federal prison. Approximately 200 people get arrested in Tennessee every year for possessing unregistered suppressors. If you want to legally own a suppressor, find a firearms dealer licensed to handle NFA items, complete all required ATF paperwork correctly, pay your tax stamp, and wait for approval. Federal and state laws create multiple categories of people who are completely prohibited from possessing any firearms whatsoever. Felony convictions disqualify you for life under federal law, but misdemeanor domestic violence convictions also trigger permanent lifetime federal prohibitions. Even if Tennessee eventually restores your state-level gun rights, the federal prohibition remains in effect forever. Certain violent juvenile adjudications create firearm prohibitions in Tennessee that last until you reach 25 years of age. Mental health commitments and court-ordered mental health treatment create firearm prohibitions. Being an unlawful user of controlled substances is a prohibition people forget about constantly. Federal law explicitly states that any person who is a current unlawful user of marijuana is prohibited from possessing firearms. Tennessee has extremely limited medical marijuana provisions under state law, but marijuana remains completely illegal under federal law. Active protective orders and restraining orders can temporarily prohibit firearm possession depending on what specific restrictions the court included in the order. Tennessee issues two distinctly different types of carry permits: the concealed handgun carry permit and the enhanced handgun carry permit. The enhanced permit legally authorizes both open carry and concealed carry of handguns, and it's recognized by 39 other states through interstate reciprocity agreements. Permitless carry rights inside Tennessee don't transfer across state lines at all. The moment you drive across the border into another state, you're immediately bound by that state's specific carry laws. Statistical research shows that approximately 62% of Tennessee residents who bother getting carry permits do so specifically for out-of-state travel purposes. The enhanced handgun carry permit class requires approximately 8 hours to complete. It costs between $100 and $150 depending on which instructor you select, plus state application fees. Permit-only signage represents the second major reason people choose to get permits, even though Tennessee has constitutional carry. Businesses that post concealed firearms by permit-only signs legally prohibit permitless carriers from entering while armed, but they still allow permit holders to carry inside. Having a carry permit also creates a legal presumption that you've received formal training and passed enhanced background check vetting. In any self-defense shooting case that proceeds to trial, prosecutors and judges view permitted carriers somewhat differently than they view permitless carriers. Tennessee law permits you to carry handguns into restaurants and similar establishments that serve alcohol, but only as long as you personally don't consume any alcohol whatsoever while you're armed. The law attempts to distinguish restaurants from bars based on their primary business purpose. If a restaurant posts a no firearms allowed sign, you cannot carry there regardless of whether you plan to consume alcohol. If they don't post any sign prohibiting firearms, you can legally carry inside, but you absolutely cannot consume any alcoholic beverages at all. Not one sip of beer, not one glass of wine. The law maintains complete zero tolerance for any alcohol consumption while armed. Tennessee adopted Stand Your Ground law in 2007, which eliminated any legal duty to retreat before using deadly force in self-defense situations. You can legally stand your ground anywhere you have a legal right to be present, but stand your ground absolutely does not mean you can shoot first and sort it out later. The force you use must still meet legal standards of being reasonable and immediately necessary under the specific circumstances you faced. The controlling legal standard is whether a reasonable person in your exact situation would have believed that deadly force was immediately necessary to prevent imminent death or serious bodily injury. Statistical analysis of Tennessee criminal cases demonstrates that juries convict defendants in approximately 31% of self-defense cases that proceed to full trial. Castle Doctrine extends stand your ground legal principles to 3 specific protected locations, including your home, your occupied vehicle, and your workplace. If someone forcibly and unlawfully enters any of those 3 protected spaces, Tennessee law creates a legal presumption that you reasonably feared imminent death or serious bodily injury. But Castle Doctrine has important limitations. It doesn't apply if you were the initial aggressor who started the physical confrontation. Tennessee law explicitly does not recognize warning shots as legitimate self-defense actions. Firing your gun into the air or into the ground to scare an attacker away typically results in you getting charged with reckless endangerment. Approximately 40% of all reckless endangerment criminal charges filed in Tennessee involve warning shots. What happens immediately after a self-defense shooting matters just as much as the shooting itself in determining whether prosecutors file criminal charges against you. Tennessee law does not require you to provide a detailed statement to police immediately after a defensive shooting. You have an absolute Fifth Amendment constitutional right to remain silent. Most self-defense attorneys strongly recommend saying only that you were in fear for your life, that you want to fully cooperate with the police investigation, and that you want to speak with an attorney before providing any detailed statement. Now, you completely understand Tennessee's gun laws from top to bottom. You know about the $500 sign trap that catches thousands of permitless carriers every year. You understand how vehicle storage laws work. You know where school zones extend. You understand the background check system. You know the difference between restaurants and bars. You understand stand your ground law and Castle Doctrine protections. Tennessee maintains some of the strongest and most gun-friendly laws in the entire country. But gun-friendly doesn't mean simple, and legal doesn't automatically mean safe from expensive mistakes. The smartest thing you can possibly do is never leave firearms visible in your vehicle. Don't ignore posted signs. Don't carry in prohibited zones. If you found this information helpful, smash that like button right now. Drop a comment below and tell me what state you want me to cover next. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Stay smart, stay legal, and stay safe.